Hello and welcome to my next video where we are going to be talking about getting my Sunsynk and SolarEdge batteries working together. So following on from my previous video where I talked about my successes with getting my SolarEdge inverter to respond to my commands correctly for my battery, I've now developed this into a fully integrated solution where my Sunsynk and SolarEdge batteries can talk together and work in harmony as opposed to working against each other. So the brainchild for my solar monitoring portal was my heat pump monitoring website. I made this 2 years ago and I showed this off on my YouTube channel back then. So let's have a look at the solar monitoring site. You can see the design language is very similar indeed. What we're doing is combining all the information from Sunsynk and SolarEdge onto one page. And in particular, we've got the total solar power production, we've got outputs, we've got the household loads, and very important, we've got the operation states for our batteries for both SolarEdge and Sunsynk. And as you can see, the operating states here look very different between the two of them. What we're doing is these are the actual Modbus registers that we are commanding for our SolarEdge battery. You can see we've only got 2 Modbus registers that we are commanding. And then for the Sunsynk battery, we are setting these actual settings, which you can also see on your inverter LCD display. And this should be very familiar to anyone who has a Sunsynk inverter. We are also doing some data logging. So we are collecting the power output from our Sunsynk inverters and the overall household loads which apply. As you can see, today is not a particularly bright day. We're looking at the battery state of charge as well. And then let's have a look at diagnostics because they are quite interesting. We're looking at communication status for the Modbus interface. We've got one interface to Sunsynk on Modbus RTU, and then SolarEdge is communicating on Modbus TCP. We're looking at the number of Modbus writes. And what that tells me is whether the system is healthy or whether the system is trying to fight some other mode control of the battery. And then we've got losses. And put simply, it's the sum of your battery power and your solar power minus your AC power output. Wherever you have a difference there, that is loss. And that loss mainly manifests itself in the form of heat emanating from the inverter. Sunsynk is actually quite bad in terms of losses when the battery is discharging. But even when the battery is not discharging at nighttime and it's doing nothing, we are seeing 86 watts of power just disappearing. But whilst the sun is out, the losses are a lot more reasonable. SolarEdge, typical losses doing nothing is about 20 watts. Now, AC voltage is also important. The maximum voltage is what I'm most interested in. The legal limit is 253 volts. We get up to about 249 volts in particular surges. But in a maximum export steady state situation, we're typically seeing 248 volts. This is a number which I'm keeping a close eye on as more solar panels get added to the local neighborhood, the higher the voltage is likely to get. So this is going to be of long-term concern here. Finally, we've got solar history. We're looking at accumulations of energy and also money saved, split between both SolarEdge and Sunsynk. And then we're looking at monthly accumulations, and then we've got total accumulations. So I'll just show you my Raspberry Pi here. This is my Raspberry Pi desktop. What we have are 5 programs which operate in unison together. We've got one program which is for SolarEdge. This will do all the data harvesting and the battery control. This operates on a 5-second loop. Likewise, when it comes to Sunsynk, we have a 5-second loop which is being used to collect data and set the battery control modes. As you can see, we are setting the commands. These are the desired commands that we want our battery to have. But we've also got 3 more programs. We've got this is a data logger program. This is collecting data in terms of the power and then we are integrating in order to get the money saved and also the energy produced. And we're looking at grand totals, monthly values, and also daily totals. We're also measuring the time it takes to execute the program so that we can apply the correct integration time as well. Then we've got two helper programs. We've got this program. This looks at the Octopus API and it retrieves the Octopus Intelligent Go prices for my region for both daytime and the evening time. And then we've also got the export prices. And then we will send the prevailing rate to my data logging program, and we'll be operating this on a daily loop. So most of the time this is sleeping. And then finally, we've got a weather forecasting app. So we look at Open Meteo API, and we are looking at the forecast cloud cover for the following day. And we run that at 3 o'clock each day. It will give us an updated forecast cloud cover. So the important consideration when it comes to home automation applied to inverters is to minimize the number of commands you're sending to these inverters. You do not want to be sending commands every 10 seconds. The reason is that all these settings on the inverters are set in flash memory. And the thing about flash memory is that it gets worn down. And eventually, if you've been writing too many times to the same registers, you can get corruption of memory. And that's something we definitely don't want to happen in this instance. So I'm counting the number of Modbus writes, and I'm just simply applying a new command whenever the desired state differs from the actual state. And what I have are some safeguards to stop writing if we exceed more than 20 writes a day. If we have more than 20 writes a day, that tells me that my automation system is wrestling with something else, which is also trying to change the battery mode. Now, why am I doing this? Well, if you look at the SolarEdge profile settings that we can charge up the solar panels between defined times. But when it comes to discharging the battery during the summertime, we can only discharge it for a set time. And it doesn't matter whether the weather tomorrow is forecast sunny or cloudy. This is always going to discharge at the set time unless we actually change the mode manually on a very regular basis, every 3 or 4 days, according to what the weather forecast is. And this is not convenient. So what we are doing here instead is that we have got a discharge target for the battery. So at 5 p.m. we will discharge the battery to this target, and then this target will change according to the time of year and also the forecast weather for tomorrow. So as an example, if it's a clear day on the 21st of June, we will discharge the battery to 40%. And then if it's cloudy on the 21st of June, we will add 30% to that discharge target. So we'll change the discharge target to 70%. And then that means that if our battery state of charge is above 70%, it will discharge the battery to 70% at 5 p.m. Now, what that enables me to do is that it means that any surplus which cannot be exported from my inverters can go into the battery instead. This is what's known as clipped solar power, and it will charge up the battery once we've hit those export limits. Now with the Sunsynk battery, what we do is we charge that battery up entirely with the surplus from the solar fences, and then at 6 p.m. we will discharge it right here down to 50% at the rate of 4.5 kilowatts. So that's what we do during the summertime, and during the wintertime we do things the opposite way round. We have a charge target at midnight, and that charge target will increase from 30% up to 100% by the middle of November. And then we apply a weather modifier to increase that charge target or decrease it according to what tomorrow's weather forecast is. So when it comes to the discharge target for the battery during the summertime, we are using this formula. It is a cosine formula, so we are applying a cosine which is centered on the longest day of the year, and we are discharging the battery 60% off the maximum charge. So that's a state of charge of 40%. And then we apply a cosine variable between the longest day of the year and the 15th of March and the 27th of September. And then we add our cloud cover variable, which the other program does. Then likewise, in the wintertime, we are applying this battery charge formula. So it's slightly different variables, but it's the same basic principles. We are looking at about 30% charge on the 27th of September, and it rises up to 100% charge on a cosine curve by the middle of November. And then likewise in February and March, going the other way. Now, one other attribute of controlling both battery modes at the same time relates to the situation where one battery can be draining in order to charge up the other battery. That's not an attribute we want to happen. This is called AC coupling, and there are times when you want that feature desired, but in other times you want to switch that feature off. Now, with Sunsynk, by default, AC coupling is switched off. But what we will do in the winter time is that we will switch on AC coupling once the SolarEdge battery has got up to 100% and we're starting to measure an export, which is more than 1,000 watts. Once that happens, we switch off the SolarEdge battery and then we start switching on AC coupling for the Sunsynk battery, and vice versa. We will release the SolarEdge battery back into self-consumption mode once the Sunsynk AC coupling is switched back off. The other thing we'll do is that the SolarEdge battery is inherently AC coupling in the maximum self-consumption mode. You can't switch it on or off. If it measures an export coming from Sunsynk, it will suck that export up and charge its own battery. Something we don't want to happen. So what we will do in the winter time is that we will limit the discharge rate on the Sunsynk battery down to a few hundred watts to a few thousand watts, depending on what the temperature is at 5 a.m. in the morning and also 2 p.m. in the afternoon. That means that the Sunsynk battery will always be available to supply base loads, which is created by the heat pump. Now, I mentioned that this inverter is consuming about 86 watts when the battery overnight is programmed to not discharge or do anything at all. And that's really surprising. But I've been measuring it over the last few weeks, and sure enough, when the battery's discharging, there's always 100 watts missing between what the battery is producing and what is coming out in terms of AC power from this. And this is one of the things about this inverter which isn't as good as SolarEdge. SolarEdge is actually quite efficient. This thing isn't so efficient. But interestingly, when this is discharging at the maximum rate in the evening time, discharging the battery down to 50%, then what I find is that the efficiency is better. There's still 300 watts of power being dissipated, but as a percentage of the overall power being delivered, it's relatively small. It's about 95%. Whereas if you're discharging 300 watts in the later evening time, and you're finding 100 watts has gone missing between the battery and that, then the efficiency is much worse. Now, there is one setting in here which is called low power mode, and in that mode it will reduce the power consumption to just a few watts. What you compromise on, however, is that your inverter is no longer ready to discharge at a moment's notice when the grid goes out. So this is one of the features of hybrid inverters as opposed to grid-tied inverters. Grid-tied inverters can just go to sleep when there's no solar power. But hybrid inverters, they have to keep the they have to keep things energized, such as your capacitors and such as your switching, your high frequency switching from DC to AC all the time. And that's what uses the power up. Now, unless you're actually anticipating a power cut, there's no point having this energized. But the thing is that the low power mode here will only become active when the inverter falls below the low battery state. Now, at the moment it's set to 15%, the low battery state, but I'm thinking of increasing that to 51%, so that when we discharge the battery down to 50% in the evening time, it will just simply switch the inverter off. And then when the solar power comes back on again in the morning time, it will switch the inverter back on once it gets above the battery restart level. I think I can control those things using Modbus. In the wintertime, it becomes more tricky. But we've had some firmware updates since I installed this, and one of the firmware updates is export mode is able now to be set for each time of the day. So we've got 6 time of day settings, and you can switch export mode on or off according to the time of day. Fantastic firmware update. Do I think they could do better? Yes, I do. I think there should be the option to set low power mode whenever the battery discharge rate is set to 0 watts in the time of use settings. That would improve things a lot in terms of the Sunsynk inverter. Hopefully, if they're watching this, they take that on board, because reducing power consumption that's unnecessary is something I'd really like to see happening. So now I've got to a stage where I've advanced this project quite a long way, and I'm starting to really get into my happy space now. It's really very fulfilling to be able to interact with my inverters and be able to control the batteries using Python code. Now, you might be asking yourself the question, why don't you use Home Assistant? Why bother with Python and all of that kind of stuff? And the answer to that question is really, I want to learn. I want to learn how to code in Python, and I want to learn how to code in JavaScript. You get to understand how things work at a more basic level inside a computer. And a Raspberry Pi, these things are about, I've got a Raspberry Pi Zero in my loft. It's about the size of a credit card. It's quite astonishing what you can do with that device. It started off as a bathroom home automation project 7 years ago, and now it's expanded to control my inverters. And this is useful home automation that it's doing. And if it ever fails, and believe me, I've got backing up the Raspberry Pi on my to-do list, then it would be rather inconvenient for me. So it's becoming an essential part of my house. But there's one thing I want to talk about, and that is my car. Well, I said my car, but specifically it could be my car or my charger. This is not controlled or monitored using Modbus at all. There is one option here, and MyEnergi has got an API. So has Tesla. The interesting feature I've been discovering is that they have a feature called webhooks, and webhooks will push notifications to a device of your choice. And it seems as though it's possible to do that with a Raspberry Pi. What I want to do is find out whether the car is charging at the maximum rate during the daytime. And then I can switch off the batteries. Anyone who's on Octopus Intelligent Go will know that the most annoying thing is charging up your car on an Octopus Go tariff in the middle of the day and then draining your house batteries and leaving nothing for your house after your car has charged up. What I want to do is integrate this into my home automation system, and that will probably come in a future video. Well, that's it for this video. Next video, I want to take my house off grid, and I've not done that yet. But I want to be discussing how well the inverter handles heavy loads and how good the sine wave is in terms of the output from the inverter, whether we have any surges or dips in the voltage and so on. So we're going to be doing some time looking at those kind of details. But in the meantime, I'd like to thank you all for watching, and I'll talk to you again very soon.